How do you make the best D&D character? Are there principles you can apply to any class at any level to up your game? Absolutely. And I'm going to spell out 3 core principles in this video that you can apply to any character in any edition of Dungeons and Dragons and pretty much any tabletop role-playing game. Buckle up, because this is going to be a good one. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Verdigris Table. I'm Ryan Doyle. And look, if you haven't heard, there's a dungeon master shortage out there, and the flip side of that is there is a player surplus. And I'm not trying to be a jerk here, that's just supply and demand, baby. There are more people rolling up D&D characters than ever before, and there's a whole lot more on the way. So, if you want to be in demand as a player, you have to learn how to make great characters. And it's not difficult, I promise. It's just that it seems really easy to make bad ones. Many players will devote a ton of time to researching and tinkering and optimizing their character build. And look, no shade, I definitely do that myself. But then a lot of players will ignore the other side of the equation here and then wonder why no one else is all that interested in how awesome their character is, or worse, the player themselves will start to feel bored with the character and wonder why they aren't having nearly as much fun as they thought they would. And in some cases, a poorly built character can even suck the joy out of the game for everyone at the table. And taking to the extreme, this can cause a whole campaign to collapse. And then guess who isn't getting invited to the next one? So let's dive in so we can maximize the fun in your game and have everyone at the table excited to see what your character is going to do next. Build your character to fit the adventure you will be playing. This is so simple, but a lot of people aren't doing it. The most extreme, cartoonish version of this, but it does happen, is a player showing up with a novel of a backstory they expect to be incorporated into the campaign without having a shred of information about what the dungeon master has already prepared. Oh, your mother was killed by vampires and you're seeking revenge? Cool, but there aren't any vampires in this adventure I spent good money on and spent the last few weeks prepping. So you want your character to be connected to the adventure. You want their motivations to mesh with the themes of the story. You want a satisfying character arc for them. Awesome. I love it. Work with your DM. You can't do it by yourself. If that's what you want, run your own game or maybe just go write a book. But if you want to succeed and have fun with it as a player, you have to fit your character into the thing the dungeon master is already doing. Even if you're not interested in the fluffier story stuff, building a character to fit the adventure they're going on is a great idea from the mechanical side of things as well. You bring a min-maxed killing machine to a game of political intrigue at the court of the Archfey, you're probably in for a bad time. And the same goes for your pacifist who always wants to talk things out all of the time at honestly most tables. Even the little details are worth checking in with the DM about. Hey, I'm thinking about taking Dwarvish. Ah, there's no dwarves on this continent actually, but if someone could speak to fire elementals, it might be a pretty good thing for the party. Now, different tables are going to draw the metagaming line in different places, sure, but playing a character with sunlight sensitivity is going to feel very different in the depths of the Underdark than it will in the desert or on the high seas, right? Maybe everybody hates elves in your Dungeon Master's world. Maybe you don't want to run a character who no NPC will talk to, let alone sell stuff to or rent a room to. Maybe that actually sounds like an interesting challenge for you to overcome. Either way, you probably want to know about it before you sit down to play the game. Like in most areas in life, a little communication can go a very long way. So, if you want to build better D&D characters, think about getting input during character creation from your dungeon master. Absolutely, but also think about getting input from the other players as well. Personally, I'm not so concerned about party balance and filling specific roles so much as I'm interested in characters being different enough. It might be interesting to have 3 fire-based dragonborn sorcerers if you planned for it, but being surprised that half of the table can do all of those cool things that you thought would set your character apart, it might decrease your fun. If you really want that character reveal surprise factor, consider having all of the players telling the dungeon master what they're rolling up so they can at least say, hey, we've already got a barbarian or whatever. Again, that might be fine. I've often imagined having an all wizard or an all cleric party, but that's because it would be fun to differentiate them with subclasses and spell selections, not because running a carbon copy of the character the person sitting next to you is playing is going to be fun. Working with the other players to shape your characters can not only help to build a stronger party and keep you from stepping on each other's toes, it's also a powerful way to up your narrative game. So, how do you know each other? Well, we met in a bar last night, and I guess now we're technically coworkers. Versus, so how do you know each other? We were childhood friends who met in an oppressive orphanage, which we escaped together to eke out a living on the streets of Waterdeep. I would die for this person. Characters that have connections with one another help you start with deeper bonds that make sense. If you still want the discovery and the surprise of that getting to know you phase, you can have, four characters with two connections each and still have everyone meeting someone for the first time. But honestly, you can still get that deeper character revealing stuff with established connections too. There are things you don't know about your best friend or your sibling that you might learn if you went backpacking together for a while, or, travel down into a subterranean dungeon to battle monsters. Sometimes you might not have the opportunity to work with the DM or the other players before the game starts, and that's okay. You can still adapt to the adventure and connect to the other characters on the fly. I recommend that if you're building your character in a vacuum, you leave yourself room and like the flexibility to further shape them based on what everyone else is bringing to the table. Story time. I joined a game with strangers who had already played like the first half of that adventure together, and I was handed a pre-generated character sheet a few minutes before we started. So I hung back a little bit, learned a little bit about the other characters and how the players and the game master were doing things. And when there was a lull, I stepped in to, take the risk and keep the game moving. We got to a hedge maze, and I look at my matronly looking kobold character with her glasses and her cat, and I decided she loves mazes. She does the kobold fantasy equivalent of word puzzles and Sudoku every morning. She's all about this maze. The other players buy in and put my girl on point, and when she's the one to bump into the NPC, I start the conversation, but then try to create an opening to bring the other characters back into the spotlight. Nothing all that revolutionary, I think, but it seems easy to forget in the moment that this is a team game where you've got to work together and adapt to the conditions on the ground. And that's where this next one comes in. Please, please, please make a character that's down to go on an adventure and down to be part of a team. There are hundreds of motivations and thousands of flavors and variations that can achieve this. Find one, or better yet, find several of them and bake them into your character. If you build an edgy lone wolf that can't be bothered to grab onto any quest hooks, if you are at my table, I'm not going to drag you along. You can wait back at the tavern while the other characters have an adventure and do cool stuff and earn XP and treasure. Join the party or roll up a new character who will. It's simple. Also, and this one can get slightly more complicated, but not really. Build a character that the other characters would want on their team. Oh, so you're playing a rude jerk who steals from everybody? I mean, if everyone else is on board, that's fine, I guess. But most of the time, that's not who I'm looking to have on my side. You can build someone with flaws. That's interesting. And failure is part of the game, absolutely. Also very interesting. But if you are constantly, purposefully making things worse for the other characters, or here's the bigger part of this really, having your fun at the expense of the other players, why would they want to have you along for the ride? The best and simplest advice I can give you for character creation is to ask yourself, would it be fun if the person sitting next to me were running this character? Pretty good, right? I think we should call it the silver rule. No, no, it's better than that. Let's call it the golden rule. Look, it's easy. Who would you want to sit next to for 3 or 4 hours every week? Or consider the dungeon master's perspective, right? Let's say you were going to spend a lot of time and effort, maybe even money, to prepare an adventure. Who would you want to invite to fill the limited number of seats at your table? The character who's built to slot into the campaign world, or one who tries to take it over and reshape it in their image? The character who cares about and engages with the other PCs, or one who tries to do everything themselves? The character who drives the story forward or the one who is always dragging things to a halt? But I hear you cry, it's what my character would do. Okay, well, good thing it's so easy to build another one, because think about what the other characters would do. You were all about to set out on an adventure. If you succeed, there's a big reward in it for you. More money than you've ever seen in your entire life. Maybe even some powerful, magical artifacts that are miraculous wonders that can reshape reality. But this adventure is going to be super dangerous, and there's a chance you're going to die if you're not smart and careful. Who would you want to be by your side? Who are you going to trust with your life? We're about to go deeper into more advanced character creation tips and tricks, but if you don't apply these 3 core principles, none of that stuff is going to matter. That's why up next, we're going to talk about how to be a better player, so you get a lot of opportunities to build and run the characters you create, because everyone's going to love having you at their table. Thanks so much for watching. Be kind, have fun, and I'll see you next time. Bye.